Hello everyone, welcome back to the Educator Call Snap channel. How you doing? So today we're going to be going over the May releases essentially. It's a week out before the May season starts, so I wanted to kind of cover the cards being released that season in an official way, just going over what you want to be looking for, which ones would I be saving up for personally, that kind of thing, and just to kind of give you an idea of like what to expect in the following season. Let's begin. So first thing off here, we do have the May season pass, which is Nebula. Description: each turn your opponent doesn't play a card here, +2 power, except the turn you play this. So essentially, this is a 1-drop that has the ability to scale very efficiently into the late game, and it gives you some control tools because your opponent wants to be playing into this particular lane. So there's a lot of power here with this card. I want to mention that this card is just has so much hidden strength on top of what this card does, right? So even though it might look kind of innocent, there's a lot of caveats that just make this very strong. So first off, it's a 1-drop, right? Now there are some weaknesses to 1-drops, but you can play this on 1, and it means that you have 5 chances for this to proc, right? That is without playing like Magic or anything like that, but 5 chances to proc. There's really only 4 spaces on the opponent's board. So unless they're playing into your location every turn, you're almost guaranteed to get a proc. You're pretty much guaranteed to create a proc. So even worst case scenario, this is going to be a 1-3, which is a very strong 1-drop. Very easily, this is going to be a 1-5. It can even be a 1-7. So there's a lot of ways for you just playing a free 1-7 on the board. That's going to do a lot for you. It also kind of encourages your opponent to play in a lane that you want them to play in, which is always a problem. Usually, if you're going to be contesting lanes, you don't want to play into the lane your opponent's most contesting in. That's the lane you want to give your opponent for free. But if you only spend 1 mana and basically say, I win this lane unless you spend 4 or 5 mana in here, that's such a good cost benefit analysis for you to have, where, okay, I'll pull 1 here and I'll see what my opponent does. And then if they're fully investing, then maybe I'll put more resources in there. And it doesn't matter if you play more cards into here. It's really only what your opponent does. So you can always bolster the lane that you're playing the Nebula in. So this is just a really solid card. Definitely something I'm going to go into more detail with in like the first impressions videos or so that I do for all the season passes. But definitely it looks like a good one. It's definitely something you want to be looking out for, and I can definitely see a lot of people playing with this card. All right. Next up, let's go into some of the actual Series 5 cards that are going to be in the game. First one coming out, this one should be, I don't know the exact date, but the first week of the new season. You have Iron Lad. It's a 4 energy, 6 power card. That's decent stats, but then it has the ability to copy the text of your deck's top card. Now, I personally think this is going to be an extremely good card. So the reason why I do think that is that you can just control how the units function. You can say, okay, I'm going to build a deck where all my cards will take advantage of an Iron Lad, and then I'm just going to be running this as a big swinger, because if this pops off, if it hits any of these key cards, I'm going to get so much value for 4. It's kind of like a Jubilee in essence. It's a Jubilee, but it has a static amount of power that it can give you. And you could definitely see the power of Jubilee in terms of what it does sometimes, especially if you're playing on revealed deck. So this can be a very, very strong synergistic card. It can also kind of fix a lot of the cards that have these low base weaknesses, right? So things like Iron Man, things like, I don't know, Darkhawk, right? Things that have low base power, you can just copy that and have that be a very great win condition. I can definitely see this slotting into a lot of decks that just have really good cards already. So I definitely think this is a card that's going to see play. This is a card I can definitely see people underestimating at the beginning of a season. They're not saying, oh, wow, Iron Lad, I guess it's okay, but it's risky, it's RNG. But the thing with RNG effects is you can design your deck around them. You can design them so that they don't actually feel that bad to play. And it has such a good base power. It's four mana, 6 power, and it gets an effect. Like, that is a good card. So I just don't see this being, I see this being undervalued, but I think after a couple seasons and people really start like messing around, this is going to be a very strong tool that goes in a lot of popular decks. So this is a card I'm looking out for. This is definitely a card I could see myself spending resources on, but there are others that are coming out that do also interest me. But this one, I do have my eyes out for. Definitely a card you want to be taking a look at. Next up, we have Howard the Duck. So this actually synergizes very well with the Iron Lad we just talked about, where this one lets you see the top card of your deck. I believe that this lets you see it every turn. Like, you can always tap it as long as it's available to see the next card. So it has that effect of like you always get to see your draws, which has other benefits. You can definitely combo this with cards like Iron Lad and Jubilee, and it just gives you that consistency of knowing what you're going to draw. So it's a 1-drop that has this interesting effect. It's not flashy, but it is effective in what it does, just knowing your top decks. And you can definitely use it with Jubilee and stuff to have these cool swings. So definitely a cheap card, has a cool effect. It's not flashy enough or unique enough that I think I'm going to spend resources on it, but I can definitely see this working in a synergistic deck where you have these top deck shenanigans that Howard the Duck makes very consistent. So not a crazy card, not one I'm focused on, but something that does exist. We'll move on. Now, next one is High Evolutionary. Now, this one I think has gotten the most attention so far in the minds of the players. There is thought that this might be the next big bad. Now, the reason why people are thinking this is a big bad is because the card's text is very unique. The card's ability is just not something we've seen in the game before. It gives you the closest card this really resonates with, I think, is Thanos. And Thanos is a big bad. And if this has that kind of same feel, well, it's not surprised that this might also be a big bad. So this is a lot of the cards, or this is the card that really a lot of people are focusing on, a lot of people are saving up for. And if you don't know about it, right, as we read the ability, you might start to understand too. So at the start of the game, you unlock the secret ability of all cards with no abilities. So what are all the cards with no abilities? Those are the Patriot level cards. Those are the cards that really, if you don't play them, Patriot would buff. All of those cards will get a buff from this. So this is like Wasp. Wasp will get a buff. Cyclops will get a buff. Shocker will get a buff. The Thing will get a buff. Apocalypse will get a buff. Hulk will get a buff. Those type of cards all get buffs. Misty Knights. Now, what I would have loved for this to have the particular buffs. I know Snap.fan has it, so we can go to Snap.fan real quick and really take a look at what they actually do here. So here with Snap.fan, we can actually see what the card changes are. For Wasp, you afflict 2 random cards with -1 power. Misty Knight, you get, if you end the turn with unspent energy, you'll give another friendly card +1 power. Shocker, you'll give your leftmost card -1 cost. So this one's pretty unique because it's giving you cost reduction. Shocker, if you end a turn with unspent energy, you'll flick 2 random energies here with -1 power. Now you have to keep in mind it's here, right? So it's in the same location. It's not like randomly. Same thing with here with WAS. It has to be on those same location. So it's sometimes hard to have 2 cards on a singular location early on when you're playing the Wasp or Cyclops. Obviously, Wasp you can save to the end of the game, so it's not as bad. But Cyclops is a little bit harder. Same thing here. The thing, if you reflect a random enemy card here with -1 power, repeat this 2 times more. This one is a lot easier because you can hit the same card multiple times, right? So this one's pretty freely. Abomination costs 1 less for each energy card in play that's affected with negative power. So this can be a pretty big bomb. And Hulk is +2 power for each turn you end with unspent energy. So they all have some type of synergy where negative power has the win condition of Abomination, unspent energy has the win condition with Hulk. So you have these synergistic cards that really just work well and have a lot of extra power. If you're turning this into a 0/3, you're turning this into a 4/9. This can be a very cheap cost 9 power. This could be way more than 12 power. So the flexibility of this card is that you don't even have to run all of these cards. And High Evolutionary has really good base stats. 4 power for 7 is not bad at all. And you get to play, you unlock the ability to play with 7 other cards, right? So obviously you might put all of them in the same deck, but you don't have to. So there's so much deck design that goes on with High Evolutionary that is not really available with any other card. So this is really what people are thinking about focusing on when we're looking at the May season. This is the one. So I do think if you had one card to pick that you want to get, you only have 6,000 tokens, High Evolutionary is the card I would recommend, followed by Iron Lad so much, but this is the one I think you're going to have the most fun with, might also be the strongest, and just opens up a lot of new design spaces. So something to look out for. Hope you guys are aware of the High Evolutionary metagame. And then next up, finally, is the Living Tribunal. Now, this one was also thought maybe could be a big bad, but it's very unlikely that they're going to put 2 big bads back to back. I think that wouldn't really go over too well with the community if they did that. So it's very unlikely. Out of the 2, High Evolutionary looks more interesting in terms of people are going to be wanting to play with the card. I do think people are also going to be wanting to play with this card as well, but it does have some caveats that I'm going to talk about that might make it less prevalent in the meta. So this card, 6 energy, 4 power, has the ability to split your total power evenly among all locations. Now, we don't know if, let's say, instead of having 33 power, you have 34 power. Where does that last 1 energy go? Does it vanish completely? Does it go into the Living Tribunal lane? Does it just go to the left lane? We don't actually know, but that is something for us to test when this card does release. However, the main issue I have, there are some people that have theory crafted, oh, if you have this combo into this combo into this combo into this combo, you're going to have like 30 power every lane, which is very hard to deal with. But overall, my issue is that it requires these specific orders that we know is hard to do consistently, right? Things like Mr. Negative decks and such. So the weaknesses of it is not the deck itself, but the order required, right? You have to have Zabu or Psylocke into negative, into drawing a buff card, into that. Now you can win, but it's not like you're going to get that setup every game. And that's really where I think this also struggles. I also think that this is very location dependent. if you really want this to pop off, if you have a location like Onslaught Citadel, this could be amazing. If you have a location with like Limbo, right, where you don't have to spend your resources on that extra turn, this could be amazing. There are definitely some locations that make this a lot better, but a lot of locations are not going to affect this in a meaningful way, or might just be pretty bad for you. So it's hard to really know overall how this is going to affect the metagame. It's hard to really know if this is going to be good enough to warrant you spending your resources on. So I definitely don't think this is a card you want to say, oh, day one, I want to play, unless you do have an idea in your head and you want to spend the resources. Obviously, I'm not saying don't get a card that you want to play with. If you want to play with this card, feel free. It looks interesting. I just don't know day one if this is going to be something you'll look back 2 weeks later and be like, oh yeah, I'm playing this in a lot of my decks still, right? You might be playing it for a couple of days, but if you're not going to see success consistently, you might drop this in favor of a different card. So obviously the meta game is going to change by the time this comes out, but even from the changes, right, from the new cards being added, I don't know if this is going to be the game breaker in the meta for the May season. So you can definitely feel free to try it, and it does look cool. I just think if you were to pick a card overall, the one you want to be focusing on is High Evolutionary. This is the one that looks cool, looks strong, looks playable. Now, I also want to say the second one you should also be focusing on is Iron Lad. Now, I think this one's going to get underrepresented in the metagame, but I do think this has a lot of potential to be very strong, very powerful, and be a secondary win conditions for decks that normally don't have secondary win conditions. So I like this one. Think it works very well. It has that Zabu synergy, could fit very well into a Dark Hawk deck, and I could easily see that being one of the strategies that you see. So big fan of this season. I think there are some very interesting cards coming out that will change how people play. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the Nebula season. Enjoy the Nebula season pass. We'll definitely talk more about this card in particular in a separate video. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be